Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hello, everybody. Alex Stevenson and Jake Face here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. Mortarpod is brought to you by SeemsGoodMagic.com, my website, Jake's website, Randy Nix's website. We've all pooled our efforts together, and we put up draft content and all sorts of other Seems Good Magic card giveaways, where I give away a card each week for you answering questions, which is a lot of fun, and that's been going over well. We've gotten some good ideas for our crap draft cube in the last giveaway. And, of course, the video podcast for the Mortarpod, which is available on YouTube or SeemsGoodMagic.com as well. Follow us on Twitter, at SeemsGoodMagic, and we post when we put up new content. So if you're big on Twitter, you can follow us there, and I do tweet whenever we put up something new. Okay. On to the discussion today. So we did F&M. This weekend was also game day weekend. So Jake and I both participated both days. And Jake got top 4 and I got top 8 on Saturday. And I got top 4 on Sunday. So I was pretty happy with the performance. And I got a Pain Seer, both the promo Pain Seer, which I've already sold. So I felt good about that. They're worth like 13 right now for the promo, at least 13 or 14. And I don't know. Painseer is a cool card for that mono black aggro deck, but I just don't think that card, even the promo version, really to me is. It does look cool, but
I
just don't think that card's that great. I'm not really sold on Painseer.
Yeah, if it were always there, it'd be cool. You know, like maybe Springleaf Drum is relevant at some point. I don't know.
That's true.
Like,
I could, you know what would be really cool and I talked about this a little bit today. It would be really cool in the Esper Humans list, and that is a place I could see the Springleaf Drum, because you want to cast that Leah Sky Knight, and then you can really get good value out of the Painseer if you can't attack in with it.
Yeah.
But it's additionally running Zathrid Necromancer, so then you get the human value from Painseer as well.
Even like alternatively, if you were in mono black still, with Springleaf Drum in your deck, you could first turn Springleaf Drum, second turn Painseer, tap it for Thoughtseize, and get the value off your Painseer immediately, or like tap it for Duress or tap it for a Cackler.
So you're thinking like a disruption value deck?
Well, not even necessarily disruption.
Just like an option you have.
Like just to have it, like if you're playing 1-drops other than Springleaf Drum and you're playing Painseer, if you play Painseer on turn 2 with the Springleaf Drum on turn 1, you can play your 1-drop on turn 2 as well and tap your Painseer to draw another card.
Yeah, seriously, that's cool. I like it.
No, I don't know if the value is worth like what I'm saying, but I don't know. It's a cool interaction.
Yeah.
Maybe worth considering in the right deck.
Totally. I mean, the decks built around Painseer are using him to the best that he's, I think, able to be used. But, I mean, he's no Bob, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So anyway, the list I ran for game days and for F&M, and I'm going to go over the rounds of Swiss for F&M, is my almost mono red aggro. It's white, splashing white for a couple of Boros Charm in the main, and Chain to the Rocks as well. And I'm running Madcap Skills and Lightning Strike, and Ash Zealot, a couple Gorehouse Chainwalkers, Fire Fist Strikers, Burning Trees, Fire Drinker Satyr, and Rakdos Cackler, and Legion Loyalist. I'm not really on board with the Foundry Street Denizen version of this deck as much. I think it's a little bit too weak to some of the highly played creatures right now, like the Polycranoses and the Gorklan Rampagers and the Desecration Demons.
Yeah.
And, you know, Boros Reckoners, Master of Waves. There's just too many threats that are really, really good against this deck. Even with the Fire Fist Strikers, which most of them are definitely running, like all of them have to run it. sometimes just Fire Fist Striker is not enough on his own. So I like having the just straight up hard removal of Chain to the Rocks, and it pays off so hard. It's such an important card. The only like major threat that it doesn't deal with is Storm Breath, but since Storm Breath is 5 mana, it takes them. I feel like
a while to get there.
yeah, like I usually win by the time they get Storm Breath online, and if Storm Breath ends up beating me, then I think I just didn't draw right anyway.
And you also have Madcap to help you go through a Storm Breath too.
True, and I also have Active Treason out of sideboard to steal fatties, and I've won stealing. They've hit me for 4, and me hitting them for 4 is more devastating.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's actually where it's at with Storm Breath too, because at that point, the haste on it and like getting to attack you is almost less relevant than you getting to attack it, unless they've kept your board clear.
It's true, because you almost need to protect yourself at that point against me if I've dealt with your other threats. But Madcap has just been such an important addition to making this deck win more often. I still like Fire Drinker Satyr. I've had him punish me, a lot throughout the last couple months. It's true, exactly, and that is why I like him. I've had many people will Lightning Strike or Mizzium Mortar him.
Use their best removal to get him.
And it hurts, but like I've seen them do it over a Fire Fist Striker, and I'm so happy with that. Like I'll eat the 4 just so I can keep my Fire Fist Striker, because the Fire Fist Striker is going to win me the game when it gets by his Desecration Demon, and gets by his Boros Reckoner. So I've really liked that a lot. Let's go over the rounds of Swiss. So round 1 I played against Mono Black Devotion, and this was I believe it was running a little bit of blue. You played against the deck too.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember some of the blue some of why it was running blue?
There was definitely, if this was Mike.
Yes, I believe.
There was a Notion Thief out of the board at the very least.
So it was anti a lot of Sphinx's Revelation
I think
card
it was,
draw.
and he had a Demir Charm too, somewhere in there. So.
Okay, I think Psychic Strike may have been in that deck because I saw it played. But I beat him 2-0. So a lot of the rest of it was the same, with the Pack Rats and the Nightveil Spectre and the Desecration Demons. So the core idea, and the Grey Merchants as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of that core of the deck was there. I think it just wasn't the Devour Flesh plan.
Yeah.
It was more of like more of using blue spell plan. I mean, Demir Charm is interesting.
Yeah.
It kills creatures 2 power or less, so that deals
relevant against aggro.
That deals with everything in this deck except Goral's Chainwalker. So that's huge. I guess it doesn't deal with a Madcap skill creature, but
it does it in response.
True, because it is instant.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then the other mode is I think the other mode is what made it so weird, where it's like, look at the top 3 of a deck, and like...
Unless you see your opponent scry and seem and, like, visibly happy or relieved to see the card that they put on top, I don't really see the point in that mode necessarily.
You mill them. You get to leave the top 3, and then they mill one, or one goes in the graveyard.
You look at the top 3 of target player's library. You put 2 of them into their graveyard, and the last one on top.
Okay.
But that mode it's a little questionable. Sometimes it can be useful, I suppose. Like in that particular point that I said.
They keep it on top, and they look relieved. There are some times where
if they scry 2 cards at once, like off the new Fated spells, then...
Actually, you know where it's good? It's good with Courser Prooffix.
Yeah,
because then you can... I mean, even if you end up putting a land on top, if you see the thing that's not a land on top, that's going to kill you.
After their draw, or whatever you want to do...
You can Demir Charm to get rid of the bomby threats that you see coming. I mean, it's still not... I mean, it's still card loss, essentially, but...
Well... Or if they're doing the Courser Crucifix plus Domri, because there's somebody who's running those 2 together, and that's actually really good.
In response to Domri's ability, you could do the land on top, and then
you
maybe
possibly just rework their library. Yeah, I mean, it might be a little lackluster.
It is.
It actually kills Courser. Something else to note.
Oh, that is cool. No, that's actually really relevant.
So
that's a much more logical mode that it would be used. And what's the third mode again? Counter sorcery.
So
actually,
that stops Mizzium Mortars at the very least in that deck.
I can get behind that.
I don't know if there are any other sorceries that Monsters plays. I don't think so.
Okay. Well, so I beat that 2-0. I didn't see any Dimir Charm, so maybe he just didn't draw. I just think he didn't draw
It
that hot
could
against
have
me,
just
probably.
been a sideboard card too.
Round 2, I played against an Young Pyromancer style deck, and it got me, I believe, game 1. But I mean, it was like Magma Jets and Lightning Strikes and Shocks, every burn spell plus Young Pyromancer, and then it was kind of a lower tier deck. It was running Flux Chargers as the alternative kill con. So it was Pyromancer and Flux Charger for their meat. He was either generating a ton of tokens or he was, attacking me with a 5/1. But that was when I was packing 2 Electrickery, so I could sideboard those in and I could deal with both of those threats. I could actually deal with both of the main kill cons. So he just couldn't keep up with, the creatures I was putting out because he didn't have board wipes like Anger of the Gods and
he was
stuff.
playing targeted removal
Yes.
instead of board wipes.
So even though he was magma jetting and getting scry value, I felt like I was still okay because I had some mutable threats. It's like he just can't keep up with the man lands plus the cheap creatures.
Was he doing Nivix Cyclops at all or no?
No. Maybe we should have chatted with him about that.
That would have been an interesting choice, and like paired with Anger of the Gods, I could see that actually being a really
cool deck,
brutal aggro strategy.
Yeah, at least out of sideboard, but he didn't really have that. It was more all in on the Pyromancer.
Yeah.
I mean, he did
which makes more sense with that style of deck.
He saw the Pyromancer. Actually, he had Gutter Snipe in there too, so he was also running Gutter Snipe to get extra value. So it was Flux Charger, some degree of Gutter Snipes, and so some amount of mix of those cards. But so I ended up taking him down 2-1. Round 3, I played against Mono Black Aggro, and I lost to this one 1-2. And it was a really close match. It really came down to he had a ton, post-board, he had a ton of spot removal. So I still wanted Madcap because I felt like Madcap was so over the top against him. But the problem was he had a lot of spot removal, so I sort of had to wade through his spot removal before I could resolve a Madcap to get the full value. So I had to like spread my creatures out instead for a while.
Did you cut back your Madcaps a little?
I did, post-board, but I still wanted them good enough. I think I went down to 2 or 3. But I mean, I ended up, in retrospect, maybe I just go... See, the problem is I didn't have Searing Blood at this time out of sideboard, and now I do, and Searing Blood would have been so much more devastating against him. So I have to, I think, just get into that and do that. It really came down to a top deck, because I had a Madcap skills on a Burning Tree Emissary. I got in for 5, finally, so I was like, okay, it's safe. So I did another Madcap, and then that turn he had top decked a Doomblade, so he got to answer it. And I believe he killed me with the 3/1 Life Bane's on me. So I was disappointed, but it really came down to the top deck, and that's how close it was. Like it was.
Beat a top deck sometimes.
Yeah. So I definitely can beat that deck. I feel confident in that match. And then round 4, I played against Red Green Monsters, and I've been performing very well against that deck. I really like how this deck has played against them. I really feel like the Sylvan Caryatid, formerly a threat against this style of deck, because not a threat, but life preservation. I've got the Satyr and I have Madcap skills, so I've got 2 very good means of getting around Sylvan Caryatid on turn 2, even if they're on the play. And getting in that 5 damage on turn 2 is so big, because then I can really focus on Lightning Striking or Chain to the Rocks to keep them off like their turn 3 blocker they may play.
I kind of feel like even Boros Charm could play like a role against Caryatid if they block one of your 1-drop 2 power
just give it double strike so you can take it out.
To stop them to getting from 4 or to get.
Definitely. I used the indestructible Boros Charm not during the FNM but during today's game day against a green-white aggro deck, and that felt really good because he even was trying to juke me with a Selesnya Charm Knight token, and he had like a Voice of Resurgence Elemental token and a 3rd creature. So he was banking on taking my guys out. So the Boros Charm in that situation was, huge. It was like blowout, killed 2 of his guys, and I didn't lose mine. So Boros Charm is very useful. That being said, 2 of in the main deck does feel right because there are a lot of matches where I sideboard out of it. There are definitely matches where Boros Charm's not good. Other creature-oriented decks like Mono Black Aggro, even with all their spot removal, I'd rather be staying busy killing their creatures or, stealing their guys even if they're doing like the Herald of Torment or something.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's a very good point with Herald of Torment
Mhm.
in particular.
And that's also why my Red Green Monsters match, which I did win 2-0, is so good now because I've upped the active treason count to 2, and I think that amount. I see it at the perfect time, and it is so devastating when I've even gotten to the point where I can activate the Mutavault and active treason something.
Mm-hmm.
It also synergizes extremely well with Fire Fist Striker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
and Madcap
Remove
skills.
2 blockers. Yeah.
And Madcap skills. It's like, oh, you have your second one? Well, I steal him and my Madcap guy and you're huge, dude. Get in on it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that seems like really good. Seems good.
It's been some good synergies. So, Jund mid-range is what I played. I made it into top 8. Played Jund mid-range and I beat that 2-0 in top 8. And I'm trying to think exactly how that went down. I think there wasn't enough spot removal. He was doing like the red green monsters sort of shell, but it was also a lot of cheap removal post board, so more Doom Blades and stuff like that. But also, so it's probably pretty good against me. But I just got if I can get the double Burning Tree plus a Gorehouse Chainwalker play, I can get that out of nowhere. I think he was also doing Bile Blight, which is very strong against me. And also, I should have noted in round 3 against the Mono Black aggro, that was a big deal too. So Bile Blight, Drown in Sorrow, and Anger of the Gods are big threats against this deck. Thankfully, I've got Mutavaults, which gives me more reach, even with those sweepers. But, I mean, it's still really dangerous. Even with the Boros Charm, the only one that protects me from really is the Anger.
Yeah.
The Bile Blight and the Drown.
Is scary, yeah.
So Mono Black, I'm kind of glad it's died back in our meta. That might actually be why I've been performing well. I mean, I did beat it round 1, but I feel like that was not the right
archetype.
It was it was not the traditional one,
yeah.
which I think is powerful against me. And
yeah, because it's really the white-black version, I think, that's very good.
Yeah, that one actually wrecks me pretty good. The one that's doing like Obsidian or Blood Baron stuff, that's a big deal. The sort of mid-rangey black-white.
The one that plays the one whip plus the Obsidian.
I mean, this deck can beat them, but there's not. I think I actually need to up my Mizium Mortars count out of board. I just need to up it. I'm like this close to main decking it, maybe over the Boros Charms. Just because of how the meta has shifted.
It's unbelievable in our meta in particular how few people play Blood Baron.
Yeah.
It's very surprising, actually.
It's true. It's very surprising that that Mizium Mortars is like an answer to almost everything in the format right now that's a big threat. The way that the meta has shifted. Polykranos is the one exception that's very popular.
Yeah.
But I feel like everything else, even like Brimaz now. So Mortars is just as important as it ever was.
Yeah, it's like really become almost the best removal spell around.
I agree.
The fact that it's not black actually helps it too. So like Dreadbore doesn't even meet it because like Dreadbore can't hit Blood Baron the way that Mizium Mortars can.
I think I'm this close to main decking Mizium Mortars, but we'll have to see. There are still a couple control decks, you included, but that's sort of my report. And I've added Searing Bloods to the sideboard. I may adjust the Hammer of Perforos count. I don't know if I like it as I might just do it as a 1-of post board against control. I don't know how much I like it anymore necessarily. I might not need it. So I might just get rid of it and go for like a 4 Searing Blood out of side idea. So then that way against creature decks I just have really good, cheap.
And that burns face too. So.
It's sick. It's Searing Blaze straight up. The way against certain decks. Because it does only 2 damage, so it has to be a sideboard card. But against some decks it's exactly what you want.
If you were playing against another red deck wins, it would be really brutal against them.
Yep, or the Spike Jestry decks or anything like that. Okay, or even the White Weenie decks, I would love to do it against them. You know, because even if they have Brave and stuff, but if you can resolve it, you're at least forcing a Brave out of their hand for spot removal. It's not like, Brave's always going to be a big deal for that deck.
Right.
All right, so that's my report. Jake, why don't you talk about updates to your deck if you remember any. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have.
Yeah, I don't remember. I guess I'll just run through it again. 3 Ashiok, 2 Kiora. I don't think I have done anything different. Maybe, if anything, it's the 2 Elspeths, I guess, and maybe some stuff that I've changed in the sideboard.
If you don't know what Jake's running, he's doing a Planeswalker-y control
Yeah.
deck, so he can kind of talk about the idea of the deck and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just, I wanted to play with all the Planeswalkers, basically, and I am doing it pretty successfully. I'm enjoying this deck a lot, but, yeah, I guess there's not much more to say. It's a lot of removal and Planeswalkers that also act as removal.
So maybe talk about specifically the ones that you included.
Oh, I guess I could just. Do you want me to just run through the list too, or?
Yeah, go for it.
I played 3 Ashiok, 2 Kiora, 4 Jace, 2 Vraska, and 2 Elspeth. And then for counter spells, I'm running one Swan Song, 2 Essence Scatter. And for removal, I was doing 2 Last Breath, 2 Celestial Flare, 1 Far and Away, and 4 Supreme Verdict.
And
4 Detention Sphere.
Nice.
And then I also had 4 Sphinx's Rev and an Elixir of Immortality. And then for my mana base, it was a lot of temples and 1 each of the Shocklands, except for I was playing 4 Hallowed Fountains. 1 each of the Shocklands in white, black, blue, and green, except for Overgrown, also.
This deck looks very fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, actually. I've changed some things. I've gotten away from the Celestial Flare part of it because I felt like that was, I think, asking too much, you know?
Okay.
So I put a Doomblade in, and I think I just put in another Far and Away. These were some changes I know I made.
I think Doomblade's okay choice because, like we said, now that Mono Black's dipped back a little bit,
it has definitely dipped
I
back.
feel like then Doomblade's really looking good in the meta right now.
And I put 2 more Doomblades in the sideboard too because I was like, well, you know, like I really don't know anybody that's playing Mono Black that much, so I felt pretty comfortable having a lot more of them. And then I do think it was just another Far and Away. I mean, Celestial Flare is good if you are fighting, if you're playing against people who are running Blood Baron or Obsidat, I suppose. Well, maybe not even Obsidat.
And Stormbreath Dragon.
Yeah, Stormbreath Dragon in particular. But Far and Away actually hits the Obsidat that they return from Whip, you know, by just bouncing it. And then it can also make them, as a consequence, sacrifice their Blood Baron that they already have in play.
Cool. Yeah, that's true.
Know?
I like that.
But in addition, Far and Away just at 3 mana is sack a creature. No, you gain life. Just sack a creature. It's kind of nice too.
Yeah.
You know? I think I've also cut back to only 1 Last Breath. We don't have a ton of super aggressive decks in the meta, so I put 1 in the sideboard, 1 main deck, and I'm trying to think of what other removal spell. It was probably just another, I don't know what removal spell. I'm trying not to play a ton of counter spells in the deck because I'm running so many Planeswalkers.
I see.
So a lot of the stuff I have to play is at sorcery speed, you know.
I think you have an absolute incredible amount of removal, like via the form of Planeswalker or spell. You have a lot of answers to different threats.
Yeah.
So I really like that about this deck.
Yeah.
I think that's really a benefit that gets you to that late game to get you the Sphinx's Revelation to bring you into the real late game, which is where you win.
Yeah.
So time is like the only issue I see with this deck. But you definitely have the means to win. I've watched you win. I've watched you do crazy stuff with this deck.
It really shines in the very, very late game when I've Sphinx's revved for I think 8, and that's 11 mana. I drew 4 different Planeswalkers, and I was able to play 2 over the course of the next 2 turns. You know, after I did that at the end of my opponent's turn. So I'm back in the game life-wise, and I think it was like Vraska, Ashiok, Elspeth, and Jace were the Planeswalkers that I had drawn off of it. And so I think I led with Vraska and Ashiok because they both start putting out, like, you have to kill Vraska that turn. But Ashiok already starts the threat, like, pulling cards out of your deck and getting them for me. And I think off of the first pull, it was like Storm Breath Dragon on Ashiok.
Oh, that's
so you had
awesome.
to you had to neutralize Ashiok too. At least keep it from going a full round, so that I had a Storm Breath Dragon then too. So it's so good against green red monsters, because Ashiok can play every one of their threats that first turn that you activate it. And Vraska's really good too, because it answers everything in their deck. The Storm Breath Dragon, it doesn't matter that it's white, or pro white, I mean.
Yeah.
And then Polychronos, it will kill Polychronos. Vraska's just really good, and then if the best is when you've killed something, they didn't get her in that one turn window they have, and then you go up and they know they have to kill it and lose a creature still, because otherwise you're just gonna kill their best creature. So they send one of their other dorks at it. It's still good,
Yes.
It's still got you 2 for 1.
I really like the Vraska against the Detention Sphere. I watched you do the Vraska Detention Sphere, get my Ashiok back, mill you. And then at one point it was mill you with Ashiok, play Ashiok, mill you. It was so yeah, in multiples too, you're not afraid to just,
Yeah, and when you literally can just key these Planeswalkers out and keep them coming, and you have Elixir of Immortality in the deck to just get it all back later anyway.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It looks a ton of fun to play.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a grindy deck. It's, if you're going to pick it up, definely be a control player. Know that.
And you've had some time issues, even on Friday. So.
Oh yeah, I think I got to time in a lot of my rounds. I mean, I still was able to win the games. Obviously, it wasn't because if we had been 1-1, it would have been a draw. So
do you feel like
I was still able to win?
Do you feel like you can get quicker with it?
I think that the real issue is having several Planeswalkers out at once and activating the abilities all in one turn. I think
it just takes a
lot of time, because you also have to play spells too. And Jace has the flip and split.
Yeah.
And
you're right.
If it's
that's a good 15-second little.
Well, and in this deck it can be, I flip Elspeth, land, and Kiora.
Yeah, no kidding. So then they take another maybe 10 to 15.
Yeah. Now they're well, which is the bigger threat to me right now? And I actually had that. The bigger threat at that point was Kiora.
Interesting.
And so
he gave you the Elspeth.
The Elspeth land was one pile.
I mean, you get whatever one you want, so it doesn't matter.
It was something like that, and I already had a Kiora, so I actually took the Elspeth land pile anyway.
Well, let's go through your matches. So round 1 you played against a white-black Devotion deck, and you beat that 2-1. And we can, so some of the cards that I remember seeing out of his deck, it was almost like a mono-black Devotion, but the white that it ran was probably stuff like Obsidian and Blood Baron and Whip of Erebus.
Yeah, and this is a difficult matchup for me, because they have access to Thoughtseize,
and Duress.
The Whip combo with Obsidian is really tricky for me too. I think I had, the double Revoke Existence most definitely came in against this guy. He was probably also playing the Underworld Connection. So.
Okay, then it's important. I see that.
Yeah. I played so much Magic this weekend, and I really feel bad. I don't exactly remember every detail about this match.
That's okay, but you beat him 2-1.
Yeah.
Okay. So round 2, you played against Esper Humans, and we both saw this deck. Yep.
Because he was running Zathrid Necromancer, and he was playing Leaf Sky Knight, and he was able to use Sky Knight to turn off Planeswalkers at really key points for turns, being able to turn off my Vraska on her way up to get in and kill her so that his creatures survive, stuff like that.
He's also got Thoughtseize and Duresses.
Yeah, he had access to those two, and because he had the Zathrid Necromancer, the Supreme Verdicts become a little less valuable. You really need a Detention Sphere first before you can even Verdict. And that, I think, became difficult against him, too. So I lost that match. Not much more to say about it. It was a good match. I know that, it was hard hard fought.
Interesting tech that guy was using for that deck that I enjoyed was I watched him play a little bit against Red Green Monsters, and there was a turn where the Red Green Monsters was gonna overload Mizium Mortars for extreme value, and the Esper Humans guy played Pay No Heed, and I
That's
thought
right.
that was some really cool tech
Mhm.
because when we thought about it and he talked about it, it was like
The more
one mana answer for Overload Mizium Mortars and one mana answer for like Anger of the Gods.
Mhm.
And it even does like a cool creature combat thing. If you want to protect your creature, you can just choose their creature as the source.
Mhm.
So
stops the Palokranos thing too.
yeah, totally. I like it. I really like it a lot. And it also runs Thrill Kill Assassin, so that's pretty much Palokranos proof.
Mhm.
You know, they're never gonna block it and they're never gonna want to fight with it.
Mhm.
So I really like some of the tools that deck has that
Yeah.
we don't see in standard much.
Thrill Kill Assassin is actually a really cool card in a creature heavy meta. I wasn't really afraid of it, my deck personally, you know, because what's a 2-power guy for me on turn 2, you know?
Mhm.
Just something else to get swept away with Supreme Verdict on turn 4. So it's not that big a deal, but against monsters for sure, I can see, because then it's like your Sylvan Caryatid is turned off as far as being able to block this, and then my 3-drop also flies over and stops your Palokranos for a
Mhm.
turn, so it doesn't even matter that he has monstrous, you know. It's just a really cool. It was a really cool deck, and it had a lot of good tools because it was 3-color and able to play 3-color effectively.
Yeah. So and Brave the Elements isn't good in that deck.
Mhm.
So having the the intuition to use Pay No Heed was
Mhm.
I like that. I want to almost see that card more
Mhm.
because like we were saying, Mortars is a very popular card right now, and Anger is might be popping up shortly. Has played a lot. We'll see. So you lost that one too. Round 3 you played against Jund Midrange. I'm not sure if it was the same Jund Midrange. I think it was a different Jund Midrange
Mhm.
than I played.
Yeah, and
It was
think
like
that he might have.
drag manglers.
Yeah,
And
yes, it was the haste guy. So he was playing a lot of haste guys, and he was very aggressive with his creatures too. He had Dreg Mangler. He had maybe a Desecration Demon too. He didn't have like
Storm Breath,
full
though, right?
play sets of everything, yeah. But he had Storm Breath in there as at least a 2 or 3 of.
okay.
And then Downfall, I think he had Dread War too. So he was able to, answer Planeswalker threats. And I think he had Duress and Thoughtseize too. So he was well equipped to deal with me, and Haste guys are just good against Planeswalkers anyway, you know. So against this style of deck, it's really about just making sure that you're in like a really good position before you start to lay down the Planeswalkers that you want to go the distance with. So you have to like bait them with the ones that you know you can stand to lose, and you're playing 12 if you play the deck, so you can just get rid of some of them. And cards like Vraska are 5 mana remove anything. That's how I look at her, And if I get more out of it, then it's even better. But like, whenever I draw Vraska and the board is already empty and they have like nothing in their hand or whatever, it's like, well, okay, I'll go up to 6 and I'll destroy the next 2 permanents you play, I guess. You know? So it's good, but it's preempting. You really want to be active at that point.
Okay.
So anyway, that's it.
So you beat that one. Okay,
Yeah.
you beat that one 2-1, and then round 4 you played against Mono Black Devotion. It looks like you beat that 2-1.
This was the blue.
Yes, same one I
version
played.
that you played, yeah. And his deck was pretty good against me.
Thoughtseizes Duress.
Yeah, I mean, I don't run Thoughtseize, and it's a personal choice because the card doesn't intrigue me that much. It kind of bores me, actually, to be perfectly honest. And I've had people play it against me, and I've kept lands in my hands against people I know who are playing Thoughtseize in their deck, or like I'll draw a card when I'm in top deck mode because they've Thoughtseized me so much, and it's a land, and I'm like, okay, go, and then
You'll
they like
another one up, yeah.
Thoughtseize, and it's like, yeah,
I know what you're saying.
I'll shock you,
yeah, totally.
like thank you, and that's why I hate Thoughtseize, because at the late points in the game when you don't need another stupid discard spell, you have a stupid discard spell that all it does is make you lose 2 life. If you're running Pack Rat, fine. At least you can discard it to Pack Rat. and just hold on to it for the Pack Rat discard.
Yeah.
But like, Thoughtseize is a great early game card. It's great for aggressive decks, you know, who want to stop control from being, like, it's a great third turn play after like another 2-drop.
Yeah, that's true.
Because
for Supreme Verdict,
yeah, it's like
stopping
I
that.
want to stop your Supreme Verdict, your Detention Sphere, anything, or your Jace even. So I don't know. I just think that Thoughtseize it's got a hefty price tag and it's a great card because it can hit everything, but I'm always like not blown away by its effectiveness.
Well, interestingly, we were saying how black has been like dialed back in our meta, but you played against a ton of black decks with Thoughtseize and Duress, so I guess I don't know what we're talking about, but it does seem like there's just a lot more red-green monsters in our meta now. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe people are already shifting into more of the Jund mid-range.
Well, I know we have like a couple mono blue players too.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and a few of us have like
one or two other control builds at least.
Yeah. So, I think that we just have like kind of an open meta too, and
that's good.
I like that. I don't know. The black devotion decks weren't traditional. I wouldn't call them. Maybe the first one that I played was, but yeah, I wouldn't call that the 4th round one a traditional. You know, it had the shell, but it wasn't like the way that it's developed into white-black. Anyway, in top 8, I played red-green monsters and beat it 2-0. And I am really confident with this matchup. This is like my bread and butter. I love to play against red-green monsters with this deck. And Swan Song is one of my favorite cards against them because it stops Xenagos. And I think just stopping Xenagos God or Courser Prefix and giving them 2/2 that's worthless to them, those are good. The other ones that are good to stop, I feel like there maybe is one that I'm completely forgetting about, but
how do you stop the? You've got the Celestial Flare for the Storm Breath. You've got Essence Scatter for Storm Breath.
Well,
too.
now I'm playing Doomblade anyway, so Doomblade is actually better.
Yeah, that's right.
For this matchup in particular because it kills everything in their deck. So I swear to God there was one other card that they play, but maybe it is just for Xenagos. So I only play the one Swan Song and I just leave it in then. But they play the 2 Xenagods and then they play Courser. The guys in our meta play Courser. Prefix.
As they should. I think that's the best version.
And it's good. And
Domri. I guess you can't counter.
I can't counter Planeswalkers.
You can't counter Domri, and you can't counter the other Xenagos.
But I do bring in the negates against them still because it does counter their Planeswalkers. And I think the traditional lists play a lot of Planeswalkers actually, considering it's a creature build. But anyway, obviously Detention Spheres stay in and stuff. Most of the build doesn't change. The last breaths come out. Because I kind of find them worthless. Who else comes out? I actually take out a Kiora against them, too.
Okay. You don't like how that performs?
Yeah, she's not as effective against them. It's cool, you know, and I think as a one-of it's great, but she's not the best one. Like, Vraska, Elspeth, Jace, and Ashiok are all really power players. Ashiok in particular in that matchup is really good.
Yeah. Stealing Polychronos and being able to use them.
Steal a Polychronos. And, it's like, I'll just block with my own Polychronos.
You can even use him on turn 4.
And survive.
Yeah. You could fight a 1-toughness guy on turn 4.
Yeah, and I have the green mana, so it's like, I'm actually able to activate that.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, Ashiok is the real key, and I had it originally at 2 Ashioks in this deck, and I really quickly realized that it was like, that's my win condition. Yeah.
I really underrated that card, so I'm glad to see it's performing well for you. And I'm sure it's a meta call thing, because there probably are some matches where Ashiok really doesn't do much at all.
Ashiok is also very good against mono blue, though, I will say that.
Okay, you can play Thassa.
Is very key, and stealing Night Veils.
That's
Those
sweet.
are like both really good cards to steal.
Cool. She's good against a lot of the meta. Even against mono black, I can't see her being that bad.
No,
getting a pack rat even that bad.
The worst one to get is Obsidat, I suppose, because you can't blink it.
Oh, I see.
But getting pack rat, blood baron, desecration demon, any of those are all good. You know, cool. I think I got a blood baron off of in one of those matchups.
That's awesome.
And kind of rings a bell.
That's
Yeah.
devastating.
And that is devastating against the white-black player because it's like, oh, you're playing Blood Baron? Cool.
And it's pro victory.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Uh,
I'll just start gaining life.
That's
Thanks.
awesome. All right, well, cool. I'm actually really happy
Yeah.
your Ashiok is good and playable in the right meta.
I'm maybe it's early to call this, but post rotation it might be like a 4 of in some deck.
Cool.
And not necessarily like a mill strategy, but just a bona fide. It's that good as like a creature control card. You know, it's almost like control magic.
That's sick. I love the card. I watched you play it. It does insane things. Even doing like Frostburn weird, and it's almost like because you're 4-color, you can do all creatures' activated abilities. You know, the sole exception being red.
Yeah, so it's Storm Breath Dragon I can't activate, and it's like I don't even really care that much.
Still have a 4/4 haste.
Yeah, exactly.
She just poops out a 4/4 haste flyer. That's sick. All right, well, that's cool. I want to see more of this deck, definitely. I really want to see this deck evolve with the meta, too. I hope you stick with this one.
Yeah, I'm going to. I think I'll be playing this one again this week. So
This is an evolver.
This one update the sideboard and update this main deck with what I play this week. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I think it's kind of at that really sweet point where, you know, the meta's right for it, and it's like got the right cards in it. So we'll see.
Journey to Nyx. Maybe you'll even get to add another one or two. You know, maybe. Have they talked about any planeswalkers that'll be in that, or do you have any assumptions?
I think they're speculating really hard that a Johnny is going to be in it, and they're saying that it's probably going to be a green-white version of a Johnny, since that's the only color combo we haven't had yet.
That makes it playable for you. So we'll see.
We'll see.
I hope Johnny is usually very creature oriented.
Yeah, and so like.
But maybe this one will spit out cats or something.
Yeah, if he's a token producer, then he'd be awesome.
Yeah,
you know, and
then you could totally
play perfect. Yeah, but we'll see. Like if he does anything enchantment related, I guess if I can search up detention spheres or something.
Hey, it wouldn't be the first time. Didn't they have a cat generator? I mean, a Johnny is a cat, right? So they had that core set. Whenever you play in Aura, it makes the 2/2 cat, and then you get to enchant it. And it's also Kimbaka Regent, who's there's already been precedent set of cats spitting out cats.
I mean, it's not out of line with his character necessarily to have the cats, but we already have the cat token producer guy, you know, the cat soldier. But I mean, it could be the token he produces. I mean, Soren went up, putting out a lifelink vampire, right? So, I mean, a 4-costed Johnny could go up to put out a 1/1 vigilance cat soldier.
Would you play it?
Yes, if that's what it was.
Well, I hope it is, because I want to see more. I want to see more planeswalkers. Seeing you with 4 of them out was absolutely insane, and I really hope that you, like, I swear, if you just piloted this for like a couple more months, I think you could really get to the point where you knew exactly what you were doing more often. I bet you'd be much more comfortable with how you sideboard. And
the sideboard is really difficult too. I will say Palisade Giant has actually surprisingly been worthwhile in the times that I've gotten it, and enough to let me leave it in. It plays very well against mono blue, surprisingly. It's weird to say it, but they usually aren't able to kill it with the guys they have out, you know, unless they have an active Sasa. And even then, it saves you all the damage that they could normally get through to your planeswalkers or to you that turn.
It's really funny that card's been working out for you.
The only thing I wish about it, I guess, is that I had some sort of prevent all damage to a creature I had, you know, effect. But I'm not, like, hellbent to keep it alive when it's out. It really is just there to die. Played it against red-green monsters, and he had a Xenagos with a Rurik Thar, and I think I had an onboard Vraska that could kill the Rurik Thar, but he couldn't get any damage through. So I got to kill his Rurik Thar, and then just like detention sphere his Xenagos or something. Yeah. Palisade Giant turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, I like you have Rapid too. Yeah, you got some good sideboarding. I like it. Well, we've been talking about F&M for a while, but let's at least do Weird Harvest this week. Weird Harvest. Weird Harvest, everybody. Everybody loves this segment.
Yeah, it's everyone's favorite.
Everyone's favorite. All right. Well, this week we decided to go to Kamigawa block, and we have a great one for you. Shinin or Shinin of Flight Swings. Shinin of
Shinin,
Flight
I think
Swings.
it's
Shinin of Flight Swings. We're not. It's not really the name that's the odd part of this, although that is. I mean,
we
that
don't
is
even
a
know
weird
how to
name.
pronounce it for sure.
It's unpronounceable by by us. So it's a 5-mana 3/3 flyer, and it's got the ability Channel, which some of you may not even know what that is. But Channel could be used at any time, right? It wasn't even sorcery, and it had a casting cost, and you discarded the card from your hand, and it did an ability.
Yeah.
But it was uncounterable.
Yeah, it was like cycling, except instead of draw a card, it's this effect.
So it was cool. It was uncounterable. I
Yeah.
liked it. I guess you could stifle it or not. Okay.
There was Squelch in the block that could do it, I think.
Okay.
Counter target activated ability.
But Jake, so we've talked about what the card does. It's a 3/3 flyer with the Channel ability. Maybe you want to describe the picture?
I said it looked kind of like Slimer from Ghostbusters. I really think it looks like like a ghost from Ghostbusters.
It's very odd.
Yeah.
Very odd card. It's almost like frog tongue with like teeth.
That's like a chameleon tongue.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's almost like a Mouser from like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a little bit. It's so strange. And I don't know what this thing on its head is. It's very elaborate.
Yeah. Well, the floating things, objects, that was a signifier of spirit creature on Kamigawa in particular. Like, that's an art direction thing from this block.
Oh, okay.
So all of the spirit creatures would have these orbiting objects around them, you know?
Okay.
So the orbitals make sense to it, but like the headlamp on top or the disco ball, I don't know what it is exactly. Like, I'm trying to think of what is that? It's like a War of the Worlds like search orb.
What about the color too? Like, describe the color of the thing.
Translucent. What is
like
that?
A rainbow.
Yeah, like what is that? That kind of
It's purple,
what is
green,
that
yellow,
texture?
turquoise.
What does that look when something's really reflective?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Where it's almost like or it's almost like that gasoline look on something.
Yeah,
it almost
like
has
oil.
that oily gasoline like glare in the sun look, where it almost looks like.
I feel like luminescent or something.
Luminescent seems more like white, lightish or something like the fish that have it.
Luminous.
But maybe you're right. Maybe that is what it is. But it's definitely crazy color pattern. It just looks out of place too. I mean, it doesn't strike me as a spirit very much.
Oh, right. I mean, like back to that. No, I mean other than the Slimer thing. But no, it really doesn't. It's like a vampire
it's got
mouth.
Teeth. Yeah.
What is that? And the chameleon tongue is. And it like
tendrils. It has like tendrily things coming off of it.
The appendages are weird. I wonder if you looked at it sideways, it actually looks like it could crawl. Also,
well, regardless, I would recommend everybody look up Shinin of Flight's Wings.
It's an interesting.
Definitely.
It's an interesting read.
I feel like the channel aspect of it is almost worthless. Like, why would I? I mean, it's not worthless. It can give a guy evasion, but it's almost odd. The difference between a 5-mana 3/3 flyer and paying one, discarding it, and giving a creature flying is it just feels very different.
Yeah, compared to Bestow, this is shit.
Yeah, like, it doesn't feel like it's enough. It feels like I'd almost always rather do a 5-mana 3/3 flyer.
Like, only in the most severe case would I ever channel this guy.
So in that case, it's a very narrow channel.
But there were some that were very devastating channels, so it might just be the nature of channel, you know? That there are just some creatures that you would rather have as creatures, and some that you rather channel.
Channel was a cool ability, though. I wouldn't mind seeing it again.
Yeah, I think that it's a small dose kind of ability, though. You don't like. It was smart of them to do it in a small set because there's not a lot of depth to what you can do with it, you know, other than making every creature a spell, I guess. Which is something they totally could do if they wanted to do another all creature set like Legions. But I think that they think
they should bring Channel back.
There you go.
It's a devotional set.
Yeah, like screw Bestow.
Channel the gods.
We've only been working Bestow this whole time.
That's true. But they added. Wait, what did they added? Are the two new abilities in Born of the? I'm trying to think. Are the two new abilities?
Tribute.
and
This one.
inspired. So they both
Yeah.
they could be related to gods. So it'd be interesting what they bring back. I really hope they bring Keeper of the Faith back in Journey to Nyx. We're really
Yeah,
crossing our fingers on it.
fingers hard on this one.
Yeah.
Because, like, how
It
could
seems
you
to
not?
so fit in.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
They give double devotion. They're good, and I'll play so much of them in limited.
I believe they're human too, so
Perfect.
they could just fit.
All right, well that's it for this week, folks. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Hope you enjoyed this podcast.
Later.
See you later.